Panelists here, Amna Nawaz, co-anchor of PBS NewsHour, our NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake, Brendan Buck, a former advisor to House Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner, and former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, who is here before two-a-days begin for Pat Mahomes.
There you go.
It's good to see you. Let me start with you, Brendan Buck, because you heard what Governor Burgum said. Now let me play this exchange between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis.
DeSantis, as I call him, the abbreviation, is a globalist sellout, and Paul Ryan and Karl Rove, acolyte, who's in the pocket of Wall Street donors at the Club for No Growth.
Donald Trump has spent over $20 million attacking me. That's more than he spent supporting Republican candidates in last year's midterm elections.
So Doug Burgum's message just feels like, is that a fish out of water messaging compared to what DeSantis and Trump have decided to do?
Well, I got to say, DeSantis' answer there was a bit of a most Washington answer I've ever heard, talking about fundraising and attacks. But in the bigger picture, yes, Trump and DeSantis are fighting the culture war, and I think that's what Republican voters want right now. I talked to a lot of Republicans who are like, how do we break out of this cycle? What do we do? We need to put out a 10-point plan to remind people what we're for. And that's really answering a question that nobody's asking. Republican voters don't care about your policy right now. They want to know that you're a fighter. They want to know you're fighting for them. They want to know that you see that the world, the threat that they see coming from Washington, and you're going to stand there with them.
Garrett, you know, your first job for us here at NBC was to cover Mitt Romney.
That's right.
And I felt like I was talking to his younger brother there a little bit. He even has the salt and pepper feel to it.
He could be a sixth Romney son.
Exactly. And I don't say that as a criticism,
No.
But even Mitt Romney realized a business-only approach wasn't going to work. And he awkwardly tried to embrace some social issues. It didn't work.
Yeah, he got to it too late. And that was a big debate within his campaign of how much he should just be the economic Mr. Fix-It and how much he should engage on these other issues. Look, I think Brendan kind of touched on what to me is the key issue here. It's not about culture wars. The operative word here is wars, right? It's the fight. And this has been Donald Trump's superpower all along, I think, in this primary, is that he has cultivated the right enemies. He can fight the Biden DOJ. He can fight the left. He can kind of pick the enemy of the moment and make it all about how they are going after him. DeSantis tries to do that, even in that clip you played, the idea that Trump is the enemy. Right. That's not going to work. Trump has spent the last 8 years in the public eye cultivating all the correct enemies to Republican primary voters, and I think that's a big reason he's got the lead that he has.
Claire, how nervous would you be if somebody like Doug Burgum suddenly ended up with the Republican nomination? If Republican primary voters said, whoa, hey, let's go with somebody who's going to do that.
Well, would he be a stronger candidate than Trump? Candidly, he probably would. Because what Trump and DeSantis haven't figured out is they have to win a general. Neither one of those people are growing the number of voters they need to win.
It's like just the opposite.
It's just the opposite. Yeah. Their sliver is shrinking. And the culture wars, I got to tell you, this time around, bring it. Because I think that Democrats want to talk about abortion and they want to talk about guns.
I was just going to say, yes, they did the messaging, but this felt, I'm with Claire here. I don't think they're going to run on Bidenomics. I think they're going to say it. I think they're going to do it to appease Bernie Sanders, who says you should run on the economy. Yeah. But I think they're going to run on abortion and guns.
Sanders, by the way. I think the economy is a huge part of their message. They need something that tries to capture all the many things that they've done, including the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, all of those things. They're trying to get it all under one big umbrella. And look, White House officials will tell you it's not that it has to be all the way fixed by the time people are voting. They just want it to be trending better. They think that is definitely a strong message that voters will be voting on. But absolutely, you're going to see Vice President Harris out much more talking about issues like abortion rights, talking about voting rights, talking about those issues that we know they've been messaging on, more cultural, social things. That's going to be just as big a message for them.
Yeah. How would you be handling the economic messaging here? Because voters don't believe it. What would you be telling people in Missouri?
I think that fundamentally voters do understand that we have very, very low unemployment. They see it in their families, that everybody has jobs, everybody can get jobs, their jobs are paying slightly better. If I were them, I would not try to sell the whole economic picture. I would just talk about what politicians always talk about. Jobs, 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 jobs. And with the infrastructure bill, they can do the same thing. Jobs, 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 jobs. So jobs, guns, and abortion.
All right. I want to pivot back to the Republican race because this is like the umpteenth week in a row, Brendan, where we're saying, is Ron DeSantis losing? The Wall Street Journal called it stalling. Well, Ron DeSantis is acknowledging that he's struggling. But listen, you talked about a Washington answer before. Listen to this answer on rationalizing what's going on with his campaign.
Well, I think if you look at the people like the corporate media, who are they going after? Who do they not want to be the nominee? They're going after me. Who's the president of Mexico attacking because he knows we'll be strong on the border and hold him accountable in the cartels? He's going after me. So I think if you look at all these people that are responsible for a lot of the ills in our society, they're targeting me as the person they don't want to see as the candidate.
This feels like an attempt to do what Donald Trump does a lot better than he does, is be the martyr.
Yeah, I've always agreed with what Garrett said about making enemies. And Ron DeSantis has made a lot of enemies, and he's very good at getting people on the left to dislike him.
He used to be the best person around to pick a fight.
Absolutely.
He knew how to pick a fight.
It worked for him. But at some point when you're
didn't.
running for president, you need more than that. And you need to be able to connect with people. And I think this is what's missing with Ron DeSantis. And I think we've seen it in years past. There's a lot of comparisons to Scott Walker and Jeb Bush. And I think one of the biggest problems with them was they were a little dull. And I think what we're seeing is Ron DeSantis gets out here and people are seeing him more and more. He doesn't make people feel anything. Whatever you care about Donald Trump, he makes you feel something. Ron DeSantis seems to lack that.
You know, Garrett, I saw that Glenn Youngkin made sure that he has checked the box and sent National Guard troops to the border. I think it's sort of a perfunctory thing. You don't want to be the Republican governor that didn't. There's a reason that the Brian Kemp and Glenn Youngkin rumors don't go away. It's due to DeSantis' performance, is it not?
Right. I mean, there's a significant element of the Republican electorate and the Republican donor class who desperately want there to be someone to give a credible challenge to Donald Trump. And the theory was that was always going to be Ron DeSantis. And if not him, who? Is it somebody who's already in this field, or does the field expand yet again? Now, it's getting awfully late in the year for something like that to happen. But every bad DeSantis poll story, every awkward DeSantis clip on television opens that door a little bit wider for someone else in this theoretical field to say, why not me?
Hey, very quickly, Amna, you heard Phil Murphy's answer about the Supreme Court. As much as he wishes things were differently, he doesn't want to go through Supreme Court reform. I don't think Biden does either, but is the party going to pressure him to?
He may get some pressure from that, from the left wing, but that conversation's not going to go away. It's never going to go away, right? The economy is their big message right now. As Claire said, they have a good message to deliver, right? Unemployment is low. Inflation is coming down. It's still uncomfortably high. The risk for them, though, is if things get worse. This has to be something that continues to get better for the next year.
And the Fed's going to keep tightening, and we still don't have enough workers. And that both contributes to inflation.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.